To the video series of SharePoint quick questions and answers. In this whole video series, we will try to understand SharePoint in questions and answer format. So let's take up the first question which every newcomer asks. What is SharePoint, WSS and MOS? So in order to understand SharePoint, WSS and MOS, we'll take up a typical company and we'll first understand how that company works, how its people work, how is data circulated across organization, and then we will see the importance of SharePoint. So here is the company. Now, when we talk about organization or a company, we have people like CEO, accountant, or we have like sales manager or probably customers, and they have their own data. Means, for instance, the CEO must be having its management data files stored in Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Accountant must be having its balance sheets or accounting balance sheets, trial balances, or data entries, daily transactions stored in Excel files, etc. Now, we have talked about people, we have talked about data. Now let's look at that how they actually exchange this data. Right. So let's say the CEO says, okay, give me this year's trial balance or account or balance sheet or today's transaction, accounting transaction. An accountant basically says, okay, I have shared a drive. You can take up the Excel sheet or whatever file or data file from the shared drive. Let's say that the sales manager says, okay, what's the strategy for the sales this year, right? And the CEO can send an email. In the same way, when the company is interacting with the external world, or I'll say its customers who are lying outside its organization boundary, probably they are using intranet for sharing information. So one is that one is we talked about the data, and one is we talk about the data transmission or the protocol by which they exchange data. Now what is the whole issue or whole or what is the main problem with this kind of communication? First problem, that the files or the accounting data files or management data files or the data files are lying in their own personal PC. So tomorrow, if suppose that the PC gets knocked off, right? Then and you are not taken a backup, then you lose all this data. That's the first problem. The second problem is that if tomorrow the accountant or the CEO is not there, then to get these data files, definitely there is an issue because you have to log in his PC, take his user ID, password, etc. So in other words, there is a personal dependency, or I'll say there is a dependency on an individual. Only he knows where the data files are. Right. Second, the third point is that everybody is using its own protocol transmission or own way of or the own protocol which he is comfortable with. For example, the accountant is comfortable with sending data using a shared drive. CEO is comfortable with the email. The customer is comfortable with the intranet. So you can say the way the data is transferred is again non-standardized. So we can say the first point is that the data is decentralized. So let's jot on what are the points in these kind of communication. First, there is non-standardization, right? Second, the protocol is again non-standard, so non-standardized data, right? Second, there is non-standardized protocol by which the data is sent. Okay, and due to this non-standardization, the collaboration between the entities becomes complex. In the sense, when a CEO wants to collaborate with his customers, he has to think that, okay, I need to upload on an intranet. When the CEO wants to talk with the accountant, he is comfortable with sharing of a drive. When the CEO wants to means he wants to coordinate with the sales manager, he has to send an email. So in other words, that the collaboration between the entities have become complex, and with that comes down your productivity of your organization. So uh, how can we change our working so that we can increase collaboration? And the answer to this is centralization. If we can centralize all the data into a single server, for example, now I'm showing a different scenario or a different outlook of the company, the same company which worked in a decentralized manner. Now here what I'm doing is that I've started centralizing the data on a server. So I've centralized the data and everybody just connects to the server or connects to the intranet or to the website, where the data is stored, and can share its file, can download files sent by the other entities. You can say that if we can come up with a centralized enterprise information portal, we can increase collaboration between our team members, right? And SharePoint does exactly that. As the name says, this is a point where everybody comes and shares. So that's why the name is like SharePoint. So in other words, SharePoint helps us to centralize the data. First thing, it standardizes our transmission protocol, because now everybody is communicating through intranet or HTTP, I'll say rather. That means they are all communicating through the enterprise portal. The third point, the data formats also standard. In other words, if you remember the previous scenario, it's possible that the accountant sends the balance sheet in Excel format, and the CEO replies in a Word format. It's very much possible. But over here, because they are uploading on a central server, the upload mechanism is controlled through the SharePoint. Even the templates, I will say, or the data file formats are also standard. So we have achieved three things by centralization. First, there is uh, there is no decentralization of data. So everything, the backup, etc., is now happening on the server, and everything is centralized, right? Second, non-standard protocols are removed. Now we all are communicating through intranet portal. Third, the data templates or the data formats are standardized. So you can say that by centralization, we all achieve good collaboration, right? So now that we have understood that, okay, we can centralize using SharePoint server, let's go to the next session where we will try to understand WSS and MOS. Okay, now let's understand the two important fundamentals, WSS and MOS. WSS stands for Windows SharePoint Services, and MOS stands for Microsoft Office SharePoint Server, right? Now WSS is the API, or I'll say rather that it's a core platform of SharePoint, and on that platform basically MOS is built. So WSS is the framework on which MOS is built. Now WSS is basically free, and it comes with a licensed 2003 server. So if you buy 2003 server, you will get WSS free, right? While MOS is a separate product by itself. So what Microsoft has done is basically it has said, okay, you can use the core framework free. It comes as a package with Windows 2003 server. But in case you need, but we have provided some additional functionalities. Means Microsoft has provided some additional functionalities on the top of WSS and named it as MOS. In case you want these reusable additional functionalities, then you need to buy a separate product by itself, which will cost you something, right? So MOS is a separate product and it needs licensing. So that's a basic big difference between WSS and SharePoint. WSS is basically free. If you have bought Windows 2003 server, you can install it and you can use it, right? While MOS is a licensed version because of the additional functionalities you get on top of WSS. So how do you make a choice between WSS and MOS? First thing, budget. In case if your customer of if your requirement specifies somewhere saying that, okay, the budget is this much, and the budget is, they don't want to budget out for they don't want to budget out for special MOS, then definitely you need to use WSS. Here the development time will increase in case you want these additional functionalities, because you need to build it yourself, right? But in case there is no budget constraint, and second, your requirement is matching with the additional functionalities, or you can reuse a lot of additional functionalities from it, then definitely you can go for a MOS. So the choice between WSS and MOS depends on budget of the project and the VAS, that is value added functionalities. How much of those functionalities you really wanted. So that's what all WSS and MOS is about. As we go ahead in the video tutorials, we will be using these two words in many places, and whenever we use these uh, two vocabularies again and again in the coming tutorial, it should be very clear that, okay, when I say WSS, I'm talking about the core API which comes free with Windows 2003 server, or we can use it with Windows 2003 server, while MOS is a licensed version which has additional functionalities which is built on top of WSS. So these two vocabularies I'll be using in the coming videos, and whenever I use those vocabularies, it the context should be very much clear.